voting are as follows. Honorable K.T. Hammond, 154 yes, 116 noes, rejected 1, abstention 1. Honorable Brian Achampon, 167 yes, 98 noes, rejected 4, abstentions 3. Honorable Stephen Asamoah Boateng, 147 yes, 122 noes, 3 abstentions. Honorable Muhammad Amin Adam, 152 yes, 117 noes, rejected 1, abstentions 2. Honorable Osei Bonsu Amwa, 149 yes, 120 noes, abstentions 3. Honorable Dr. Stephen Amwa, 146 yes, 123 noes, 3 abstentions.
Well, welcome back to Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. That was Speaker of Parliament Abansuma Nakinsford Bagman there, announcing the outcome of a secret ballot which led to the approval of all 6 ministerial nominees of President Akufo-Addo. Is this a beauty of democracy or a devastating and disappointing outcome on the account of the NDC? And are you surprised? Well, we'll find out exactly what happened, especially because of the videos we've seen flying around on social media where some MPs, in trying to sort of prove their innocence and also the consistency with the party's position going into this approval, they decided to take videos of their secret ballots. And we have some of them. We have pictures of them. So that if they are being criticized, they would be excluded from the general criticism of the NDC or minority in Parliament. Well, there's a whole lot happening which we may not see with the eye. The Member of Parliament for the Cape Coast South constituency, who is a member of the NDC minority in Parliament, Honorable George Rickett Kweku Hagan, is joining us in the studio now. Morning to you.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning. Also with us, Professor Ransford Jampo, Professor of Political Science at the University of Ghana, Legon. Professor Ransford Jampo, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great. Also, Martin Kpebo is private legal practitioner and also the leader of one of 3 individual bondholder groups and the convener of the Kumipregu Reloaded demonstration. Martin Kpebo, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great. Richard Ahiagba is Director of Communications of the NPP. So that's in the studio. Ahiagba, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you, Alfred.
Great. Also joining us on Zoom later, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete is Executive Director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG. Let me start off with you, Honorable Rickett Hagan, for good reason. And have you had sleep since last night?
Thank you, Alfred. No, I haven't.
You haven't slept since last night?
No, I haven't.
Why?
Well, I left Parliament at about just after midnight.
After midnight?
Yes. We basically finished proceedings just around midnight. So we left Parliament around midnight, but, one could not sleep. One could not sleep. And
Why-
then, of course,
why-
I have to be here.
Well, let me understand. So after the approval of the ministers, which was around 7 p.m. thereabouts, what did you do next?
Well, we did the judges as well.
So you eventually
Yeah.
approved the judges?
Yeah, yes.
I
Well,
see.
they approved the judges, yeah.
That was after the the standoff earlier and your position that you were not going to approve them. The judges too were approved.
Yeah.
I see. Wow. So why couldn't you sleep?
Thank you, and good morning to our viewers, and good morning to the panel here of brothers, Professor, and then my good brothers. And good morning to you.
Yes, morning again.
I did not actually sort of shout a lot in Parliament, but I seems to be losing my voice, so I don't know the medical explanation for it. Yesterday was a sad day for democracy.
You say yesterday
Yeah.
was a sad day for democracy.
democracy.
Why?
And if democracy, I'm talking about the legislature. We are responsible for providing an oversight. We have an oversight responsibility of the executives, and that is the executive. That is, we check the executive to make sure that first, the taxpayers' money is used judiciously, and that the government is performing to obviously what they told the people that they will do. So we act as basically we looked at the performance and whatever is going wrong as far as the executive is concerned. So we failed in our responsibility yesterday, and it was mainly by those that the people are expecting to hold government accountable, and that is the opposition. We fail in our duty for three main reasons, in my opinion. There may be other reasons, there may be other views, but
you narrow it down to three main reasons.
Three main reasons.
But you say you have failed the
yes,
Ghanaian people.
the minority failed the Ghanaian people yesterday. We did. No doubt in my mind. Especially after having more or less the excitement of people that we will do A, B, C, and then we ended up, starting from Z, Y, X. And it was quite shameful, still shameful. We have disgraced ourselves as minority. We completely disgraced ourselves.
You've disgraced yourself.
Absolutely. We were not disgraced. Though we lost the vote, but you would have thought that the loser was disgraced by the winner. But here is a case where the loser actually disgraced itself.
So you engineered your own disgrace?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And for three reasons, in my mind. Number one, and if the NDC is going to have any future and be an alternative government, then we should wake up and address some of the problems that's been going on for a while, and then it's been compounded by other issues lately, and that is what is also to where we found ourselves yesterday. Number one is about sabotage.
Sabotage. Who sabotaged?
I wouldn't, mince words on this. Sabotage of the new executives.
Sabotage of the new executives.
Absolutely. We have a few people, or many, when you look at the votes, who, you know what happened at the beginning of this parliament, where we had changes in leadership, and you know what happened. Some people were not happy. Most of their unhappiness, I think, was based on principle as to how the whole exercise was conducted, and that some members of parliament felt that there should have been some consultation earlier on before that decision, and that's my understanding, and that they were not against the new leaders coming in led by Honorable Atuforson, but rather the manner in which the party actually carried out the exercise, which was fair in my mind. But since then, things look as if they have calmed down. It looks as if we are getting along. But my suspicion was realized yesterday that things have not healed, and that there is a group or a small group who were not happy with events, and that they are out there basically to sabotage the new executives to make sure that they fail. This, let me clarify something. This is not, I'm not suggesting that leaders, the old leaders, Honorable Haruna Idrisu and Muntaka and Honorable Aveji, played any part in this sabotage that I'm talking about. But it looks as if, let's say, supporters or people who were sympathetic to what happened, some have moved on. Some said clearly that their issue was on principle and that they were not interested in, basically who is leading us as long as the right things are done. So they have moved on. I mean, we talk to colleagues, they have moved on and said, okay, if this is what it is, now let's form a new, united front and deal with this. But I believe that there is still a few people, and as I said, I'm not talking about the leaders themselves,
the previous leaders,
but people who, I wouldn't say supporters, but were not happy with events, felt that they should punish the party. And by punishing the party, they punish themselves and punish all of us.
But the leaders, the previous leaders, the leadership of the minority indicated they had moved on. As a party, the leadership and some other eminent persons within the party met the previous leadership, spoke to them. They all, made public statements that they had moved on. And so why would you say that it was a sabotage by some of the people sympathetic to them?
Yes. I mean, you did say the leaders have moved on.
They moved on with their sympathizers.
Well, I mean, sometimes sympathizers do things different from what the leader even recommend. Because, look, it's just having followers. In a political party, you have followers, and then you have opponents. Usually, you tend to forgive first before your opponent, before your supporters, because whatever was happening between you and your opponent becomes a deep-seated issue among the supporters, funny enough. And sometimes when you want to even say that, look, let's call for peace, there may be people on your side who will say, no, we won't have it. Because they tend to do more of the damage to themselves than even the leaders themselves.
Assuming I want to go with this narrative of a sabotage, which you say is your own understanding of what happened yesterday, the new leadership was sabotaged. This is not the first time we've seen such surprises on the part of the minority NDC. Even during the era of the previous leadership, which was changed. I mean, remember the approval of Kojo Nkrumah, Hawa Kumsin, and then the finance minister. You took a position, right? The party and the minority took a position. But then things went the other way. The same outcome.
Well,
okay, so where lies this sabotage if it is all about the new leadership?
Yeah.
Even though this has happened again the same way in the previous leadership regime.
Alfred, I haven't finished. I think I remember telling you that there are three things. So I've just mentioned the first one, which is probably more current than the others.
I see.
So it was a clear undermining of Honorable Atufosin's leadership as a punishment to the party, that is the party leadership, Honorable Asedin Nketia, the chairman, and the general secretary mainly. And number two is to do with greed.
Greed?
Yes.
On the part of who?
On the part of some of our MPs.
NDC MPs?
NDC MPs, yes. And this is perhaps one of the things that you could cite to be part of the previous reasons where you just mentioned we got to where we did. So that there are some people who don't see the collective interests of what we are trying to achieve as a party, and that they are more interested in themselves making money as quick as they can, and by selling the NDC, selling the caucus or the minority caucus, when we are in a position of strength, that if it looks as if we have something good that we've talked about that we intend to achieve, others use that to go and negotiate for their own selfish interests on the other side.
So what you're saying is that some NDC MPs were bribed, they took money?
Absolutely. No doubt.
No doubt.
Because before we went into
You know that for sure?
No doubt. Because
you
things added up. Let me tell you why I said no doubt.
I see.
They told us, as our leadership, the number of people on our side that they are 100% sure that they've got them. They told us.
Really?
And was it a coincidence that the numbers happen to be the same?
So the new leadership told you that some of you and NDC MPs have been bought?
Yes.
They told you?
Yes.
Before you went into the voting?
They went into a meeting and our opponents told them that we've bought your people, so be careful what you're trying to do.
MPP MPs told you?
Yes.
That some of you NDC MPs
well, that's what my leaders told me.
Your leadership told you this?
Yes.
Kesla Atufosin and
yes,
they said it to you?
Yes.
That some of you NDC MPs have been bought?
Yes.
They knew this before the voting?
Yes.
So why then did they come out at a press conference to say that they are standing with the Ghanaian people and that they are going to reject the nominees?
First of all, you know, there are psychological games with this.
That press conference was an hour or so before the voting.
There are psychological games in this whole thing. That somebody could come and tell you that, look, we've done this, we've done that, we've done that. Most of the time, that might not be the case, but it's a way of trying to put a fear of God in you. Because we have, on numerous occasions, where there had been suspicion, people have been approached by the leadership to put it to them that, look, this is the information that we have, and you've got to be careful. And of course, people will deny, people will say all sorts of things. There were some dynamics in this whole thing, and that is the third one that I will come to. And then after, when I get the opportunity, I can explain each one for you. The third one, which is also unique, and that is the difference between the confirmation of the ministers and that of the judges, and you could see that in the numbers. That is to do with friends, people on the NDC side who are friends and family of some of the nominees,
of the judges.
Now ministers. No,
the ministers.
Ministers.
I see.
So we had a lot of discussion. A lot of things went on, where leadership people themselves came and said, "Look, this guy is my mother's brother, so he's my uncle, and
I can't do anything.
It's going to be difficult for me to vote against my uncle, especially if you are expecting 136 or whatever, and it happens to be 136. My uncle will know that I didn't, vote for him. This guy is my best friend and all that." You remember, as you rightly pointed out, in the appointment committee, where Honorable Brian Achampon was telling Honorable Atuforsen that you are my friend.
Indeed.
We are friends. We are actually friends. Whatever you see and everything, there is some friendship. People eat together, people do all sorts of things together, some hang out together. Okay? But generally, there is a civil way to work with one another in Parliament. Also, when it comes to ministerial appointment, there's always a way, because there is this notion that today you are in power and you are being appointed a minister, and then if I resist your appointment, tomorrow it will be you, and same thing might happen. So, kind of scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of situation. But what happened was that challenge, so people came out and say, this person is this. And then in the end, we had a party position. The party position was not based on the qualification of the individuals nominated. It was not based on their personality. It was not based on any of them. It was based on the principle that this government, the ministers, are too large, too many, and that even the IMF that we are trying to seek extended facility from, the Paris Club, we're trying to restructure our debt, are all saying that we have too many ministers and we should reduce the size of our ministers, civil society, and ourselves. So, as part of our oversight responsibility, where the president has refused to heed to the advice of reducing the number of ministers, we thought we have the tool, or we had the tool, to be able to force the issue. And that is, if we do reject the new ministers he's adding to the original, I know some of them are just replacing others.
Yes.
If we're able to do that and say that, look, we will approve any more ministers if those ministers are relevant, and that there are some ministries that you can actually put together and do not maybe need separate ministers and all that. So we thought that we could do that from there. So based on that principle, not on any of the 6 people that the president had nominated, and we had communicated this to the world clearly, that our position is not about K.T. Hammond or Brian Achampon, but it's about the principle that we should, if we're going to an IMF program, what do you go to an IMF program for? To enhance your revenue and then also rationalize your expenditure. That's what the whole financial fiscal consolidation is about. So if you are coming to Parliament and trying to ask us to approve some tax measures and all that, bills and all that, in order to enhance your revenue, because our revenue is below 16%, much lower than our peers, and we need to ramp this up to maybe about 20%. These are part of the measures that the IMF wants to see us do, so that we'll be able to build our revenue. On the other side of the balance sheet, they also want us to reduce our expenditure. But this is a government who is not prepared to reduce the number of ministers, but has also added over 80 billion to its expenditure.
So that's what. So you essentially wanted to use this appointment process,
absolutely,
to disapprove of these ministers.
Yeah.
So to force government to cut down the size.
Absolutely.
But
that was the
principle. You failed.
But we failed.
And
we failed as a result of
all these three factors.
All these 3 reasons I've given you.
Sabotage, greed on the part of some of your colleague NDC MPs
Yeah.
whom you allege have were bribed.
And the greediness has been there
the
for
leadership
long.
told you that some of your colleagues in the NDC MPs have been compromised.
Yeah.
Even before you went into the vote.
I remember telling you, just a quick one. I remember telling you when I was last year that because of greed and other things, we were not able to win the vote of censure. And I cite myself as a personal example where I was actually disenfranchised.
You were disenfranchised. You didn't take
To contribute to a debate. At the 11th hour when I was about to talk, old leadership, came to tell me that we've taken your name off the list now. When they knew for over a week the preparation I've put in place and the stuff that I had, which we thought would be able to nail them. So that greed has been there for long. Well, we've just added to it other things.
Wow. This is what happened.
This is what happened. I was a victim of the greed because we could have nailed the finance minister. I always say that.
But you were told to
Yes.
keep quiet.
At the 11th hour, if they had given me enough time, I would have probably reacted. But when I was the next to speak. My everything. I've been given all the assurance. Nail this guy for us. I was ready to do the nailing. Then they took the hammer from me.
Who took the hammer from you?
Well, leadership.
You mean the NDC leadership?
Yes. At
The
the time.
minority leadership?
Yes.
In Parliament?
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to hide this. I'm telling you. They are listening. They know. I mean,
And what
this is
reason
what
did they
happened.
give for that?
Well, leadership is fluid. Information comes at the 11th hour. Something has come up. We have to take your name. I couldn't. So the end of that session, I couldn't see anything that happened that was fluid enough to demand that.
Wow. It's a wondrous decision. Professor Ramso Jampo, please. You see,
I can't say, what do you want me to say?
yeah.
I don't know. I came here reading about some political science theories that will tend to offer some explanations to what happened yesterday. But from the horse's own mouth, people were greedy. Some people decided to be greedy. And this is an empirical information coming from somebody who is part
Indeed.
of the group. And so I don't know whether we shouldn't give him more time to speak about these things, because I think he's nailed it, and he's giving practical examples.
Exactly.
Some of the things that he himself, has experienced, and that speaks to the fact that people decided to be greedy in a manner that constitutes a severe affront to our quest to boost the role of Parliament, and particularly this kind of hung Parliament we have as a countervailing authority to the powers of the executive. It is disappointing, to say the least. Yesterday I spoke to a few people. I know some were very down, and but the point is, those who have conscience did what they could, and those who decided to be greedy, well, we leave them to their fate, and we ask the good people of Ghana to judge them. You see, basically, a hung Parliament is good because it enables the Parliament to serve as a check on the executive arm of government, and it also ensures that there is a demonstration of real politique and respect on the part of the executive to Parliament. Again, a hung Parliament can work not to obstruct the executive arm of government if the executive arm of government develops a certain mastery in lobbying and cajoling the minority side to vote alongside the majority. So ideally, there is nothing wrong if the majority side is able to lobby the minority side to vote alongside their position if the cause is good. And there is also nothing wrong if the minority side is also able to lobby the majority side to vote along its side if the cause is good. And that's how come for the first time we're happy and we applauded the minority side when they were able to lobby some members of the majority side to vote along their side in selecting who becomes the Speaker of Parliament. When that happened, we're happy. Minority was able to lobby some members of the majority side in determining who must be the Speaker of Parliament. And we applauded because the cause was good. Now, in this particular instance, the minority side had a good cause that had previously been championed by the owners of the land. My teacher and my mentor, Professor Michael Kwe, who is bereaved, said, I'll come to the house to come and greet your mentee. I've still not been able to pass by. My condolence, I'll come to the house to come and greet. But my teacher and my mentor, Professor Michael Kwe, told me that Ghana has owners. Ghana has owners. Now, if you fail to go to do direct survey of the ordinary people to galvanize their idea, if you're not able to do so, you will still be able to have a feel of the views and interests of the masses by talking to the owners of the land. And who did he refer to as the owners of the land? He said there are certain identifiable groups. Identifiable groups. So you have chiefs, you have civil society organizations, you have pressure groups, you have all those identifiable groups. He refers to them as the owners of the land. Now, the owners of the land had, and I believe they still have, a certain clear position that they were expecting Parliament to vote in sync with that position. A Parliament that is not able to vote in sync with the position of the owners of the land is not worth its salt.
It's not worth its salt.
Yes. So what is the position? What was the position of the owners of the land? Apart from President Akufo-Addo and apart from his appointees, I never heard anybody in Ghana saying that the size of government is good and must be maintained. Virtually every member of civil society, the owners of the land, the ordinary people, if you speak to them, they were all saying that the size of the government is too big. And the complaint had gone beyond the shores of our country to include complaints even from members who are outside the shores of the country and diplomatic community and development partners. They were all saying that we should downsize. And at one point in time, the call for downsizing became a cliche. Everybody was saying it to the point that it now resonated with ordinary people. And so, when I heard that members of Parliament were saying that they would want to vote in a certain line to ensure that the government downsizes, I felt that they were just serving the interests of their constituents. I've told you that the foremost function of every parliament is representation. Representation essentially connotes acting in a manner responsive to the interests of your constituents. So if the interests and wishes of your constituents say that, look, the size of the government is too big and let us reduce, then you must vote to reflect that size. So the minority side had a good cause. And so, because they had a good cause, I was expecting that they were going to live according to that cause. Lobbying and trying to talk to the other side to vote along your side is normal in every parliamentary democracy. But if you have a good cause and you are lobbied to sacrifice that good cause, then there is something wrong with your head.
There's something wrong with your head?
Yes, because you have a good cause. And you are there because you are representing a certain interest. The interests you are seeking to represent are the interests of the owners of the fiduciary power that you exercise. And so, if in trying to exercise that interest, you act in a manner that is not in sync with the interests of the people who own the power, then I repeat, there's something wrong with your head. But, well, fortunately, the majority of the minority side voted to support the principled position that they have. The majority of the minority side voted in support of the principled position that they have. But the minority of the minority side kicked against their own principle. Now, I want to hope and believe that all that my senior brother,
Dr.
Hagen is saying, I want to hope and believe that is not true.
You want to hope and believe
I just want to assume that it's not true.
The sabotage, the greed. It's coming from the horse's own mouth.
I'm trying to play a certain devil's advocate. But you see, so in that case, I hope that those who voted against their own conscience did so out of their conviction that in that case supported the size of the government. But if they did so as a result of what my brother, Honorable MP, is saying, then they are a monumental embarrassment to the cause to strengthen Parliament as a countervailing authority to the powers of the executive. Now, when they are able to identify such people, then I would say that their party and their constituents should deal with them.
You should deal with them.
When they are able to identify such people, I will say that their party and their constituents should deal with them for voting in a manner that went contrary to, number one, the constituent demand, and number two, the party position. Now, the argument yesterday I was trying to nose around, what really may have accounted for this. And I know my brother here mentioned this particular point in passing, that you see, traditionally, members of parliament and historically, members of parliament, they don't tend to vote against their own when it comes to ministerial appointment.
As their friends
yes.
And
If you look at the trend, given the relationship that they may have established among themselves, so we come from different camps. But you see, I know politicians who tell me that you see, our best friends are outside our party. Our enemies are actually within our parties, and so he may be NDC, I may be CPP, but we may be very good friends. Okay, and so I have heard that traditionally and historically, because of the relationship that may have been cultivated, it becomes difficult for members of parliament to vote against their own, especially when there is ministerial appointment. But I'm saying that this practice indeed is a bogus norm that undermines progress in our quest to strengthen Parliament. Yes, we may be friends, but if we have a principled position that resonates with the interests and desires and demands of our masses, then friendship should not be able to come in between ourselves and the position or the interest of the ordinary people whose fiduciary trust we exercise. So, I must also add that, if what my brother again said is true, that the few who voted in radical departure of their own principled position to reduce the size of government, if they did so as a result of bitterness, given the recent reshuffle in the minority leadership in Parliament, if that is what they did, then I would advise them that it is politically smart on their part for them to cut such bitterness and to offer sincere support to the new leadership, because they will need the support of this new leadership in their future and bigger political future, in their future and bigger political plan. Okay, so those who are being led or influenced by bitterness to attempt to sabotage the current minority leadership must know that they would need the same minority leadership, their support, in their quest to climb higher the ladder of political progression tomorrow. Now, to the majority side, I also say they were unprincipled.
Why?
Because in not too long ago, some of them came out openly to demand the ousting of Ken Ofori-Atta. And later, when we said it was some of them, later they themselves came to tell us that it is now a majority caucus position that Ken Ofori-Atta must go. Now, clearly, we realize that the president was dribbling them, and in trying to dribble them, he tried to also co-opt some of their leadership, the leadership of the majority side that felt that Ofori-Atta must go. He co-opted them through some of these appointments. But I was expecting the majority side to also vote in a certain way to send a certain message to the president that they do not, or they didn't like the fact that the president seemed to have taken them for granted. Ofori-Atta is still there. And now the call for him to go has died down. Even the champions of those calls, now they don't want to be associated with that call. They are scared. If you call and you ask them, they are scared. And so both the minority side and majority side are a monumental disappointment to our quest to promote Parliament's role or to strengthen Parliament's role as a countervailing authority to the powers of the executive. And so generally, it appears that our hung Parliament is still not ready to live up to the mandate that the people of Ghana gave to them following the 2020 parliamentary election. There is a point that my brother Richard Anyagba, are you still my student? Okay, yes, I have a lot of students. If you are my student, you don't banter me unnecessarily, otherwise you have failed.
Professor Jampo.
No, there is something that he said off camera that I thought was apt, and the minority side henceforth must learn. He said, you can go on whipping. You can go on with your whipping system, but don't do it publicly. Especially when you know that there is likely to be a secret ballot on an issue. Otherwise, it's becoming one too many. Oftentimes we hear the minority side saying, we are going to do this, we are going to do that, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. Then when it matters most, they vote in a manner contrary to what they tell that they are going to do. The next time, if they don't learn, and they don't learn and they don't take advice from this council that you can whip, but don't do so publicly, then the next time they tell us that they are going to do something, we will not take them serious.
Professor Ransford Jampo, thank you. But let me establish this. NDC had majority MPs in Parliament yesterday, right? You had more MPs than the majority side, than the NPP in Parliament.
But he said great.
You had more.
Yes, I mean, we had the numbers there.
You had the numbers.
To force a tie, maybe.
Interesting. So, you see, this is how things are. Richard, I'll bring you at this point and I'll go to Lawyer Martin Pebo. I want you to put on the screen, very briefly, how the voting party and the ministers who, in fact, the members of Parliament who were absent, and then also how things played out. Just to complement the point that Rickett Hagan made earlier. Yes, this is Stephen Amoah, 147 yes, 122 no. So if NPP had 135 MPs in Parliament yesterday, correct? 135. So you had close to about 12 NDC MPs voting in favor of Stephen Amoah. Okay, let's go to in fact, three of them absented themselves. Yeah. They decided that they were not going to be part. They abstained. KT Hammond, 154 yes, as against 116 no. I mean, many who were surprised by this because of the kind of reaction that KT Hammond got after his appearance before the Appointments Committee of Parliament. Yep. And some of the answers he gave and the reactions, we thought that was going to be out. Look, he had even more than Stephen Amoah, 154. So close to almost 20 NDC MPs voted in favor of him. Let's go to the next one. Brian Echampo had the highest. That's 167 yes, as against 98 no. Four rejected ballots.
He's a getter.
Four rejected ballots. Interesting. Then you had Obi Amoah, 149 yes, 120 no, and 3 MPs decided to abstain. They didn't want to vote yes or no. Then the next one, 147 yes for Stephen Asamoah Boateng Asabi, 122 no. Then the next. So this is it. The eligible total MPs to vote on this were 275. As we know, James Jachakwesen has not been attending to Parliament. So, but then there were 2 other absentees as well. So yesterday there were 272 MPs present. That's according to the Speaker. And the total absent 3. Now these were the MPs that were absent. Let's take a look. Sarah Joasafo, NPP, was absent. Philip Atta Baswa, MP for Kumewu, was also absent because he wasn't feeling well. Then James Jachakwesen. So out of the 3 absented MPs, there were 2 of them that were MPP and just 1 NDC. So technically you had 136 of your members there and 135 of MPP plus the independent candidate. So there was a tie of 136, 136. That was a worst case scenario. So if you had voted according to the whipping and position of the party, if there was a tie, then the approval wouldn't have gone through.
Yes, because the motion would have failed.
I see. Wow. This
exciting.
Richard, I've got.
Wow. It's like Christmas has come early.
They have showed them some small itiwa. Wow.
Did you say anymore? You don't need to.
You don't know what to say.
No.
Yes,
you want me? Oh, okay. I'll just, thank you very much, Alfred, and to my good friends and my professor here. I think that my brother, Honorable MP, was talking about yesterday was a sad day for democracy. I beg to differ on that. I think yesterday was a good day for democracy, to the extent that people would vote their conscience. I see he talked about some 3 things about people sabotaging the leadership, people being greedy, and friendship across the aisle may account for why the departure. Those are very fair reasons. His explanation of them, I think, makes sense to him to say that. But I think that what really carried the day yesterday was people realizing that there is a need to make our democracy work. I depart slightly with Professor Jampo in stating that the NDC had a principled position. It is not a principled position. The President of the Republic has a mandate. And Prof talked about the owners of the land. The owners of the land gave the President a mandate to execute on their behalf. He is executing that according to Constitution. President must appoint with the prior approval of Parliament to carry out a certain mandate. That's simply what the President was doing. You can disagree with the numbers, you can like the numbers, but that is a principled position that the President has a responsibility to appoint, Parliament has a responsibility to approve. Now, where they would tell me, and I would agree with Prof if that happened, to say that There was a principal position because an individual's personality, his conduct, his history did not match what the Constitution allows for one to become a minister of state. If there was a character issue, there was a performance issue, there was principal non-acceptance position or behavior by any of the individuals, then you can take a position and say, for the benefit or the interest of the state, we cannot have, excuse me to say, a criminal be our minister. You can make that. That is a principal position. But to say quite simply that a president appoints and Parliament must execute their responsibility to approve that individual, not any dent on the individual, but just simply because we want to make our political point to say that cut the size of government, that is not a principal position.
So the proposal to cut down the size of government, it's not a political position, is it?
No,
I mean, would you say that?
I think Richard should not set.
No, so would you say that the IMF and others would ask that we should cut down the expenditure?
No, I am not. The call for the government size to be reduced.
Okay.
Because it is not.
Yes,
it's not a political.
For example.
But I'm saying that
partisan position.
Indeed.
I mean, some people within the MPP itself at one point in time went on demonstration.
But I'm saying that
asking for the size.
Prof, I don't.
Thank you.
I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is that what you must agree with is that the president has the responsibility to appoint ministers. Is that in dispute? That's not. So if you are saying that your opposition of a constitutional mandate of the president to appoint and Parliament to approve is not a principal position, then I'm afraid you can't advance that. And when people in the NDC seize wisdom, wake up to reality and say they actually have a burden to cooperate with the executive to do the work of the people, then that is a principal position. So any number of NDC people, I don't know them on the basis of friendship, on the basis of good conscience, to say that we are here to do the people's job and therefore we will vote because we don't see any position or any reason to vote against the Honorable Brian Achampo, to vote against Honorable Stephen Asamoah Boateng, to vote against Mr. K.T. Hammond, then you are saying that democracy is being given a voice. I say yesterday, democracy can be messy, but yesterday its beauty was revealed. That people can actually look at a situation and say that the right thing must be done, and that was done. Now, my honorable MP talked about sabotage and greed. The friendship part I can understand, which of course is almost a given, but greed and sabotage, especially greed, that worries me, and I think Ghanaians should take note that the NDC has a character that if we allow them to have any access to power, they will continue this behavior, even in opposition.
What do you mean?
That they are commercializing the position of service.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, you should ask him what he meant by greed, which meant that they actually commercialize the position of service to serve the people. Imagine that you give them this country. What else would they do? The record of their service in office, we have seen, always lands Ghana in a bad place. I was having a conversation with somebody the last time, and I was saying, and Prof, maybe I should have this conversation with you much later, to say that, assuming that at the founding of this Fourth Republic, the MPP was the first government of this, formed the first government of this Fourth Republic, would have been in a much better situation, because if you look at the trend, NDC leaves office in 2001, MPP comes in, the country was in a shambles. We have had to do a version or a form of debt reprofiling, go through HIPIC to stabilize our economy. This economy was stabilized, growing, and then pick it up in 2009. They went through to 2016, 16 and 17, we came in, the economy again was disrupted. We are here, again, MPP, having to do a version of debt reprofiling to re-establish this economy. So the conduct exhibited, which I didn't see it, but my brother saw it because he was there, to say the NDC is greedy, that conduct carries through their performance. And I think that this is a seminal moment. It's a seminal moment for our country to look squarely at the challenges we're facing and look at the two parties and make a determined position to say that the NDC cannot be an alternative. Cannot be an alternative. The challenges we face today may make them appear that, okay, well, let's try something else. But the evidence of their conduct, which my brother confirmed, I didn't know about it, that they went, commercialized their position, just tells me a character problem with the NDC that we should not even venture to want to consider them at all in our democracy.
If in the derivative element of the Honorable Ricky Hagan's statement, would you say that he painted the entire minority group with a brush of greed, or he made the point that
Because
a section of the minority MPs were greedy?
Well, I'm just telling you an associative conduct and behavior with the NDC. That I'm saying that comes from their crowd, right? And so what is the Akan proverb? I think there's a proverb like that. There's one bad nuts spoils the crowd. And so you have the NDC, that's an associative behavior to say that there's a group of people, political party, that's essentially inherently greedy.
That's how you understand his
No, that's what he said. But the NDC,
if you want to actually quote him, then it will be fair. Okay. So that's how you...
I'm just saying that your viewers appreciate what I'm saying, and Prof does as well. To say that there is a conduct that is associated with the NDC, which is greedy, that all of us don't accept. I think all of us here disagree with greed, but then they exercise that. Be it a principal position or not, they decided to commercialize their position. I find that very repugnant. I think Ghanaians should take note of that. You see, the minority, and based on what my brother said, is in disarray.
You think so?
That's in disarray. Because you must have a leadership position that is moving on principle. And I already, Prof, I've disagreed with you that the decision to vote against those MPs was not, ministers, was not principled. Now, to the extent that they would constitute an unprincipled position to be their principal position, it's a perversion of the fact of the matter. If you look at it from a constitutional standpoint that President appoints, they must do that. You can disagree, say that we think it's too big, it's too that, but make your point, but then do your responsibility. But to actually convince themselves that to go against the Constitution, to check their responsibility, okay, and try to create a situation of groupthink, even though this thing is not acceptable, even though it goes against what the Constitution says, the President cannot approve his own ministers. You have to approve.
No, but to establish
not so let me find out this. Richard, does the law a minute? Does the law say that at all costs and by all means, members of Parliament must approve of the nominations of a president's ministers, regardless of whatever circumstance or situation that we're faced with? The law does not give members of Parliament that right to dissent.
They are not robots.
They must necessarily approve of the ministers.
Well, you can read a possible dissent and a possible absence of dissent into the provision of the Constitution. It didn't give any room to say they must or must not. But we're saying that consistent with the provision of the Constitution across board in other articles to say that a certain qualification must be present, that a person must be of certain behavior or character traits. Now, unless you see those things being present, that the person really does not conform to an acceptable personality to be in office, all the individuals they approved yesterday, I don't think that any one of them's character is impeached anyway. So to take good people and say that they qualify, because that was a conversation. In Parliament, they were saying, well, these are our colleagues, they're doing their work, we know them, we like them, and say we're not going to appoint them, we're not going to approve them because we have some political interests that we want to protect, and so therefore we are going to advance this groupthink position to say that everybody vote against it. That is where I'm saying that they are perverting, okay, what is principle, advancing the unprincipled to be principled. And the NDC MPs who voted out of alignment with what their leadership wanted actually exercised their conscience. And I think that that's good for our democracy, because in the end, we must expect our MPs to state a claim. So I disagree with the position that people should be singled out for treatment. I think I've seen a publication from some of the MPs to say that they should be exposed. I think my professor talked about they must be dealt with. I think that actually is not advancing democracy. We should, in this country, be advancing and promoting that people should vote their conscience, because that is the only time that we can have MPs be independent, the very thing we're trying to promote, and have Parliament be assertive. It must be assertive in the individual, it must be assertive in the group position, so that you go to Parliament thinking that when I take this particular bill there, people are going to assess it based on what is good for their constituents and collectively what is good for the country. If you don't do that, and you want to link this situation to a group position and say that what the leadership says is what must stand, you run the risk of having people make this government, or this country, I should say, ungovernable. And that for me is the fear.
Just a little clarification, because he seemed to have twisted my position. Let me, there are various models of representation. Okay, sometimes MPs act as trustees. Now, if you are acting as a trustee, you are expected to vote according to your own conscience. But when clearly your constituents prefer a certain line of action, okay, then you are expected to vote as a delegate. If you are an MP, you are supposed to vote as a delegate. Now, in voting as a delegate, you have no conscience of your own than to mirror the conscience and the interest of the people. So I'm saying that at this particular point in time, I hate it if my friends say that it was a partisan position. I'm saying that the owners of the land, including even people from the ruling MPP, had demonstrated to say that the size of the government was too big, and that something must be done to reduce it. And so if this became the view and the position of the owners of the land, then MPs who voted in a manner that went contrary to the views of the people, I insist, must be dealt with.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring in...
Alfred, just 1 second.
Just one quick respectfully.
Yeah. See, I respect the position.
I'll come to you.
Okay.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Okay. Well, it's just a small point anyway. Just
in 30 seconds.
Move on. Yes. So you see, the position Prof advanced is subjective. It's not empirical. The idea that Ghanaians out there wanted the government size cut, it's not empirical. It's subjective. So to the extent that...
Well, I
think you agree
gentlemen,
with me. It's not an empirical position. It's a subjective position. So you cannot be conclusive to say that the people departing have done anything wrong and therefore must be dealt with.
Let me Lawyer Martin Pebo. You see, Lawyer Martin Pebo, and then I'll bring please, Prof, I'll come to you again. I'll come to you. I will come to you, Prof. For example, I'll come to you. You see, Lawyer Martin Pebo, I mean, this brings in other dynamics of the party relationship with parliamentarians, because Justice Yedukete was actually in Parliament all throughout. I think from Thursday, Friday, seated, giving impetus to the party's position on this matter. But that did not stop, the MPs, NDC MPs, from going the path that they went on. And the point that Rickett Hagan made earlier, that look, they knew, the party leadership knew, and that's instructive, that they had been told that some of their members, NDC MPs, had been compromised before going into the voting process. I mean, could they have done anything different? Listening to Atofo Singh insisting that they actually pushed for a secret balloting, knowing that some of their members had been compromised. How about that?
Oh, well, could they have done anything different? Yes, naturally, if they wanted to do something different, yes. On the practical side of it, this is the way I see it, that they would try to see how to delay the vote. You see, Parliament itself has its own procedures. So once you need that, look, some of your members had been compromised. The business committee, the committee that sets the, agenda for the week and all that, I think that maybe they should have looked at talking to the business committee as if they wanted to delay it further. I know it's not that easy, but if you want to put up a fight, you can. And so the best would have been for them to seek to delay. So if they were going to, and if they had achieved that, then there will be more time to persuade their people not to go along. Because practically that was or then all of them should have walked out. But if they walked out to the extent that the MPP had the numbers, then it means that the vote could be passed. So you see that for me, I think, though it's difficult, perhaps getting a delay in moving the motion and having the votes done would have been the best. Yes. And you see, apart from that, perhaps the MP should be reminded, this may bring some constitutional debate, but so be it. There is this law that says that, look, if your party removes you from that party and they write to the speaker, you would lose your seat. I don't know if they've averted their minds to it. That's the Parliament Act, Act 300. So there's a part of it that says, so section, and note that the context is that the Supreme Court says that, look, these laws that the Statute Law Revision Commission, Justice Crabb did, they are laws. Once Parliament itself approved them and didn't strike them out. So I think, is that section 7? Look, there's one of them that says that if the Speaker receives a notice signed by the General Secretary of the party that the member who was elected to the National Assembly as a member of the party has ceased to be a member of the party. Let's repeat. The Speaker receives a notice signed by the General Secretary of the party that the member who was elected to the General Assembly as a member of the party has ceased to be a member of the party. You see it? Yeah. And then there is F. The Speaker receives a notice signed by the General Secretary of the party that the member who was elected to the General Assembly, that's Parliament, as a member of the party, no longer enjoys the confidence and support of the party. So these are grounds. If you're using the Act 300, it's for them to come and raise whether, in view of the Constitution, Act 300 should be taken as amended if you are looking at Article 94, talking about how MPs get into Parliament and removal, right? So, but the main thing is that we all know that, look, as an MP, you go to Parliament because your party has sponsored you, because it's the party that the people support. Of course, some individuals have so much gravitas that they also bring numbers. But generally, it's the ideology. So people are either the capitalists, that's the MPP, or socialists, basically. I mean, broadly, though there are nuances in between. So that, you see, Act 300, the Parliament Act, showing the powers that the party has over their MPs. So, if you are cognizant of that, when your General Secretary tells you not or to follow a certain line, and after, let me see, I don't know if I got, did they issue a 3-line whip?
In fact, yes. The 3-line whip was in motion.
Yes. So why would these traitors do what they did?
You call them traitors?
Yes. Oh, definitely. That's an understatement.
Those who voted in approval of these ministers?
Yeah. That's an understatement.
You don't believe it's a demonstration of the beauty of democracy?
No, not at all. Not at all. And you see, that's how you heard what Richard said. What those MPs have done is that they fed into the notion that the MPs are that corrupt. They are always activated by money. Of course, in this case, not all of them. Those who voted against are accepted. So now the problem is with the majority MPs and the NDC MPs who joined them. They are the problem now. They are the problem. They show that they are always actuated by money. You see, Honorable Brian Champon, Grapevine has it. I know he was one of the main sponsors of the 98 MPs. That later, Chairman Sabotage said it's 137. Brian Champo is said to be the one who was sponsoring.
So that's Grapevine unconfirmed.
Yes, so the president decided to co-opt him by giving him a ministerial appointment.
So that's unconfirmed information.
Yes,
you want to go on that tangent. I mean, you want to develop a solid point on a Grapevine information. That's.
Oh, Alfred. No, you can call it weak, but it's just the nature of it. Viewers need to understand how the politics is run. Brian Champo is in there as a minister because he was the main force behind the 98 MPs. Wasn't that at his hotel that the meetings were held, Rock City and and all those things? No, let me go on. Look, BNI even has a report on it. If you like, this NIB. National Investigative Bureau. There's a report on it.
So report?
We've heard about it. So today, if you were to give me too much heat, let me tell you, Alfred, wait. Okay. Wait, we've been in this country. If you were to give me too much heat, do you know how the system works? BNI will leak the report. Don't try it. Don't try it. Because look, if you try to give me too much heat, this report will come out. So they'll tell you how Brian Champo was behind the 98 MPs.
We should move away from naming and creating.
That is the truth. Yeah. It's the truth. People
we don't know that.
Yeah.
But you are.
Yes, let me make my point. Look, politics is not
or deny or associate ourselves with this.
Yes, let me more. They'll tell you that it's not everything that is written in black and white. If we just do black and white, people will not even understand. I say the truth. Brian Champo, when Prof, maybe I'll cede 1 minute to Prof. When Prof made the point that the president has co-opted some of the leaders of the, the demonstrators, people demonstrating that Oforiatta must go and the rest. What did you think, Prof? What did you mean? Among the six, who were some of the leaders? Who are some of the leaders?
Prof didn't mention names. You are being
let's be specific.
And we don't think you have the
plain talk. We need plain talk. Ask Brian Champo.
You can have this conversation without mentioning people's names.
No. I will mention because that is the truth. Look, that helps us to understand our politics. You know who Brian Champo is? You go to Parliament. Look, it's a major bloc. He sponsors lots of the stuff. Look, and it's no secret that Brian Champo has a feud with Oforiatta. Look, if we don't do that, people will not understand our politics. There are some contracts involved that Oforiatta seeks to break Brian Champo's business, and you think he will sit down like that.
This information that you know.
What has that got to do with the voting?
So I'm telling you how the 98 MPs were fighting Oforiatta must go, and Brian Champo was behind. Supporting, and now the president is quashed it. So what we are coming back to is that we need proper leadership. When the leadership is bad, and this one including the MPs, because the MPs are also our leaders, right? In certain respects. So when your leadership is bad, it's so porous, it's actuated by money, greed, like Honorable Rikiteke said, and all of us agree. Honorable you've also said it. When MPs are actuated by greed, personal interest, this is what we have. And it still comes back to what Socrates was saying, that, hey, this is our democracy. And that's why Socrates was never in favor of democracy. You see, because of things like this, the ignorance, the self-interest and all that, taking over the interests of the society. So, like I always say, the Republic is a book we must read. You see that this democracy went and took we took a corrupted form, because if we're doing a direct democracy, then we should be involved in taking some of these decisions. Look, Mr. Ayagba, when you had the floor, you were saying that the numbers don't matter. The president has the power to appoint. And I was just cringing. I was like, why do you say that? The whole nation agrees that the numbers must come down. Yeah. We say we are broke. And look at the huge numbers, 86, 87 MPs. How? Everybody agrees. Why do you think even the German ambassador will step in? When the president said, can you beg for us on the debt matters? Then he said, look, even in Germany, we don't have such a high number. You are telling us that 86 or 87 ministers is not big when Ghana is broke, when we are in a ditch, and you said the constitution, MPs should just appoint, should just vote for the nominees because that's their work. That's false. The constitution itself says that the MPs, Parliament has oversight. Yes. And number two, Parliament controls the public purse. Okay. What is a better way of controlling the public purse than cutting down numbers when the president seeks to appoint more ministers. What is a better way?
So one of its role is to hold the state ransom?
It's not ransom. That is controlling the public purse. Anything that increases the public purse, if the MP stop it,
that's a radical position.
It's not radical, Mr. Kansi. So that is the thing. So for me, I think that, look, and the Constitution mentions accountability, probity, accountability, etc. as what? The spirit of the Constitution. So everything is, you can't, definitely the Constitution can't write everything in black and white, right? So if the Constitution can't write everything in black and white, and it's stated in Article 37, you see probity, accountability, etc. What do you think? So we have to use our brains. We should stop allowing con artists as leaders to lead. That is what the Constitution, yes, these con artists who will come today, this in opposition, they know everything. You give them power, then they go and do like Akufo-Addo, the 18 notable codes. Mr. Kansi, I want us to look at, yes, Article 37, Clause 1. It says that the state shall endeavor to secure and protect a social order founded on the ideals and principles of freedom, equality, justice, probity, and accountability. There you go. Probity. So we need to have that honesty. We need to have integrity. We need to what? Protect the public purse. So what better way can the MPs ensure the ideals of this constitution than by voting against the appointment? Because now it's like we are also weak. We are cowards. We're just sitting there and Akufo-Addo alone is just scaring us, throwing himself around, and we are just quiet because it's so despicable. How can the MPs vote for these additional ministers? It's despicable. Just like how the 98 MPs came and stated at the time they did the demonstration against Ofori-Atta. Just like the way they said they are having to defend despicable conflict of interest that Ofori-Atta is involved in. In this particular case, what the majority and the few NDC MPs have joined in is they are doing the same despicable lack of oversight over the executive. That is what those people have done. Despicable lack of oversight over the the government. Despicable lack of control of the public purse. And Honorable Ricky Sagan, thank you for speaking. Let's speak truly, because if we don't, and we continue to do this, where is the evidence? As if this is a court of law, our democracy will never move forward. Look, the principles here we need frank and open conversations. Let's stop hiding behind certain things. Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence?
You are the same person who says
thank you. But there's some information that he is privy to that we don't know. So it's just on the right path that we disassociate ourselves from it.